You're meant to do good things in the world. You are meant to overcome these self-limiting beliefs and to step into your power. And you're about to be put into a pressure cooker that's going to thrust you into this position. Said, our friend owns an Airbnb in Chimney Rock. They had a town meeting yesterday, and someone from the federal government told them all of those things in the town meeting, but doesn't want the information getting out. Two people that drove down to Charlotte yesterday, and today, one that we helped said bodies and trees all over ditches and major roads and back roads. Something weird is going on here in North Carolina. All right, hello and welcome once again to White Lotus of Light educational series. This week is a sober yet hopefully uplifting call to action. As you almost certainly know by now, there was a terrible hurricane that ripped through Florida and went all the way up through the Carolinas, devastating northern Florida, Tennessee, and the Carolinas. And it has caused incredible devastation, and we're going to be focusing on that a lot in this show. So a couple of months ago, the angels gave a prophecy back in July about how there would be hurricanes that were sent with the weather weapons to hit Florida and Texas. And Texas was hit shortly thereafter, and now Florida has been hit. And this particular hurricane was extremely devastating in its movement beyond northern Florida, especially where it caused torrential rainfall and tremendous and deadly dangerous flooding. And so what the angels told me a week ago and was released on my Patreon is that the good news is the vibration of the planet and humanity has been rising, and it's been rising at a tremendous rate, and it's been rising at a rate that even surprised the angels positively. What this means is that many of the Molochians' plans were defeated by the Luciferians. They were nipped in the bud and seized and prevented in real time, and that essentially pushed back many of the events that the angels had been predicting by a couple of weeks. And that was to give us more time to prepare, especially internally, for what was about to unfold. And so I'm going to go ahead and share a slideshow and jump right into it. But we are no longer in the eye of the storm. We are now in the storm. In the case of the people in the Carolinas, they were literally in the storm just a few days ago. So in last week's Patreon, the angels explained how the events the Molochians had planned had been thwarted by the Lucies, and this was due to the increased vibration of humanity. They also said that the Luciferians were way ahead of schedule and that this was good news, and that this had prevented some of the earlier attacks the Molochians were planning on doing. However, the plans in some form would still unfold, but in a more desperate way, simply delayed. And that is what we have begun to see with this Hurricane Helene. So Asheville is, in my opinion, based on reports from the ground and other information, this is very much Lahaina 2.0. And I also want to remind everyone that it was just a year ago that, or several months ago rather, that maybe it's been a year now, things have been happening so fast, but Lahaina was devastated, almost certainly by orbital weapons platforms and possible bad actors on the ground. Then the emergency relief was delayed and stymied by the federal government, and local attempts on the ground to help people were stopped and prevented. And there was a lot of evidence of bad actors in the local government and at the federal government level in the disaster response, which was tremendously delayed. And of course, there is a design for a smart city to be built in Lahaina. So I have a friend and former angelic magic student who lives in Asheville North Carolina. And he came to me asking me for advice in August. And at the time, what came through, in addition to some things that were going on astrologically, and he was asking a lot of very personal questions. He's given me permission to talk about this story, however. Raziel, Archangel Raziel, spoke through me and asked him and his family to move by mid-September and also to start prepping immediately. And it came through in a really emphatic way. But it's very difficult. He has an infant and a wife, and it's very difficult, of course, to quickly uproot a family and move them. They had already been tentatively planning to move to Florida by the end of the year. But after this conversation, they started to make preparations to move sooner than that, but they realized they wouldn't be able to move in that time frame. They maybe could have, but they had to take actions that just take a while. You know, it takes a while to uproot your life and move on. And so they were unable to move. So they, of course, are in Asheville, where there's been tremendous devastation. And he and his family are doing extremely well. And in fact, he was able to save his elderly neighbors because he and his family were prepared. In part, he gives some amount of the credit to the warning that he was given by the angels. The angels, of course, have been warning people publicly about these upcoming events via this channel. But they gave a very pointed and specific to him, you need to move out of there because of disasters. And it didn't make any sense to me at the time, because Asheville's up in the mountains, at least I believe it's in the mountains, but it's kind of semi-rural in North Carolina, and it's landlocked, and it's not near a massive city. Like Asheville's a decent sized city, but it's not like a metropolis. And it didn't make a lot of sense, the urgency with which Raziel said it. And I think that that was part of the reason that I wasn't more emphatic. And also, you know, Clint did take a lot of actions, thank God. But they're now going to move next week, and they're able to do that because of this warning. So the reason I'm talking about this is simply because I want to say to all of you that we are no longer in the eye of the storm. And if you're in Asheville, Carolina, or Chimney Rock, I can't remember if that's Tennessee or the Carolinas, or St. Petersburg, Florida, some of these places that have been devastated, it's too late to be preparing for a disaster to unfold, right? And I was especially urging my listeners who are in Texas and Florida specifically to prepare. I did not know the specifics, of course, that it was going to go so far into the Carolinas and wreak such devastation, even though I had been given this specific warning for this friend to move out of there sooner rather than later. It was not told to me that the hurricanes that would hit Florida and Texas would go further and would cause this torrential rainfall. The point is that for those folks, it's too late to prepare. For everyone else, for you, listener, now is the time. Now is the time to prepare. Get food, water, medicine, a means to defend yourself. If you're worried about the macro picture and you have extra money beyond that, gold and silver. If you have extra money beyond that, you can look at some of the cryptocurrencies and putting them, for the love of gravy, in a cold wallet, right? Take action right now, right away. Let me see what else. So I just want to say, please not hesitate in taking action. Buy food, water, medicine, a means to defend yourself and your family, and start community organizing ASAP. Almost all communities of any kind of size have a emergency management group, usually run by local citizens, usually without a ton of bureaucracy, because it's very, very localized. And that is one of the best ways you could plug into your community. There's almost always a disaster relief or emergency preparedness group. And if there isn't one, you may want to consider starting. Maybe go to your local, I forget what the word would be, but whatever the town version of a city council is, if you have such a thing. If you're an unincorporated town, you can just go to where your local community organizing building is, or churches, or different places, if there's a mayor's office, and ask if you can put up a flyer and start that process. Try and do it through local government channels, because usually local governments especially if they're smaller, are easier to do this. But in most cases, unless you live in a very small area, there will already be something like this. And it's the perfect place to start networking and to start finding other like-minded people, and perhaps even your soul family and your tribe, people that the angels have been saying for months, find them and start working with them, right? This is an even stronger call to action. Now is the time, and we need to come together. And remember, this is what the angels have said. The main job of people who are most high vibrational, most high aspirational, meaning that you're like me, you're in the process of healing your trauma, integrating your shadow, and elevating your consciousness, right? For those of us who are in that process of spiritual evolution, what the angels want us to do during this period of time, and we're now in the period of chaos, this period of chaos that will last probably the next 2.5 years. The intensity they're experiencing in Asheville will be fairly rare. What I mean is it'll be rare that there's total devastation that is extensive in terms of how long the time impact is. That'll be fairly rare, thankfully. Temporary disruptions and chaos, depending on where you live, is very likely. And in particular, the South and the Eastern Seaboard are going to have a really rough time as we move forward. So the angels have said. And on the West Coast, major cities are going to be very dangerous and difficult. And there's going to be a lot of problems in major cities in the West. You know, if you're fortunate enough to live in the Midwest and so forth, don't think that this isn't going to have any impact on you. The level of earth changes that are going to happen, the increase in wars, the increase in both natural and unnatural disasters, and this is pretty clearly to me an unnatural disaster. The clip at which this is happening is going to increase. The Molochians are desperate. One of the side effects of the Luciferians thwarting a bunch of their plans behind the scenes, where we didn't even see what happened there, although perhaps the Ryan Ruth thing was an example of that thwarting that did make it to the public. But part of the result of that is that the Molochians are now extra paranoid and extra desperate, because the writing's on the wall. They know that they're in deep, deep trouble. And the number of cards they have left to play are almost all big, big cards. They're aces and kings. They don't have a lot left other than really big guns, but they're scared. They're scared to pull the trigger on those, because so far the Luciferians have thwarted them, and every time they've tried to do something, they just turn it into a Luciferian victory. However, the Molochians are getting desperate, and they're going to have no choice but to pull the levers on these big guns, especially as we get closer and closer to the election. So if you haven't already, immediately, food, water, medicine. If you can't afford that, get involved in community organizing. That's a great way to help prepare yourself and meet people who are prepared, who might be willing to share their resources with you. Almost everyone listening to this is able to afford beans and rice. Azure Standard sells bulk organic beans and rice for a very cheap price. It's here in Oregon. It's run by, it's family owned. It's wonderful. It's someone that I can wholeheartedly endorse. They and other supply companies, you can find rice and beans for very affordable prices. And when you're hungry, rice and beans will look amazing. You may want to buy spices as well as you can. You can afford rice and beans. You can go to your local Trader Joe's, to your Costco, to your Walmart, and get bulk rice and beans. You'll get better deals and higher quality products online, such as Azure Standard, but you need to take immediate action. And of course, in order to preserve it, you'll need to put it in a Mylar bag, heat seal it, and have an oxygen absorber in there. 2 years ago, when I first started talking about this, I gave a whole breakdown of the process. I will include some useful links down below, but you may want to go back and actually, funnily enough, I put a picture of a hurricane on that thumbnail. And so if you go back, you'll be able to find that video, and I will also link that video down below. All right, on to the next thing. Remember, the mandate is to survive, and then on the other side, then we're going to thrive. Then we're going to thrive. The ground will be cleared, and it will be our turn and our time. But between now and then, we want to thrive. Now, I want to read to you this. So Chris Martenson is a very honorable, wonderful person. He is a public figure, and he would not post this unless he had a high degree of confidence of its accuracy. Okay, so he said, this needs to go far and wide to put pressure on the government to do the right thing and save lives. I could not agree more. This evening from a Peak Prosperity member to me via private message at my site. Them. I can't post this online because it's not quite public yet, but government officials had a town meeting with all the residents of Chimney Rock and basically told them the town was being bulldozed, bodies and all. That part I'm not sure about. The body seems like a big call, but it's possible. The Molochians are absolutely unhinged and insane. The town was being bulldozed, bodies and all, and the land was being seized by the federal government. They would not be able to move back, and basically their homes, the ones that were standing, were no longer theirs, and the federal government owned it all. I don't know what crazy play for land this is, but there's a lot of conspiracy about lithium mines. And let me tell you, as someone who lives in Charlotte and has friends who live in the area of Western North Carolina, they're not being helped, and this is actually being a stand-down operation by the federal government. There are endless reports of that. There's someone who does something called I think it's the S2 Underground Report or something like that. And he's part of a group of ham radio operators that communicate with one another across the country. A dear friend of mine and mentor of mine is part of that, and he confirmed that that was good, valuable data. And you can get a lot of really good on-the-ground reporting from the citizens ham radio operators. And I think radios are going to become more important in the future. And I'm going to talk about in my Patreon a move that the Molochians are making to attempt to clamp down on that. They've been trying to get rid of the ham radio networks and other things to do with radio for a while. And I'll be talking about that more in the Patreon. The point is that I've had more than enough additional sources saying that something is very, very wrong in what's happening. And I'm getting those Lahaina vibes in a big, big way. My friend Clint, who is currently doing very well and his family is very protected, thank God they took action months ago and are actually able now to help their neighbors and be in a really good position and be able to just leave the disaster area now, having been well fed and had water and medicine and all that they needed, and they were able to help save the lives of their neighbors, right? This is deadly serious stuff, people. So I'm hearing from him and from others that the federal government has blocked aid that citizens are trying to give on the ground. And there's more and more and more reports of this. It's all over X, right? Twitter, you can find all kinds of reports. I feel now completely confident that that is exactly what's happening. The same thing happened in Lahaina. A similar thing happened in Katrina, which was a dry run for what's happening in these disasters now. Oops. So Chris Martenson responded with, what the heck? That's quite disturbing. Is this firsthand, secondhand, or more distant info? This other person said, our friend owns an Airbnb in Chimney Rock. They had a town meeting yesterday, and someone from the federal government told them all of those things in the town meeting, but doesn't want the information getting out. Also, they're not picking up the bodies. The stench of the bodies everywhere is insane, and for some reason, the government does not want to pick up the bodies. That's very disturbing, to put it mildly. The bodies thing is a little bit hard for me to wrap my mind around, but I think that the essence of this, even if the details are wrong, the essence of this is correct. One pastor of a local church was going to door to door delivering water, and they changed their delivery request to body bags because so many homes that they've gone to have needed body bags. That's so crushing. Body bags. We're trying to keep the body count. They're not picking up the bodies. They don't want to identify the bodies, and they're just leaving them to rot in the streets. He goes on to say, I can't even, I'm stunned. This is beyond anything I could have imagined even very recently. You always pick up and bury the dead. It's what humans do. They are violating every possible custom and seemingly on purpose. Thank you for keeping me informed. People need to know about this. Let me know when you're comfortable with me posting to our forums in an anonymized fashion, of course. Then the person went on to say, you can post it because the message needs to get out. Something evil is going on in North Carolina mountains and in Florida. In St. Petersburg, Florida, they also are, I don't know about bodies, but they're not letting them pick up dangerous debris and trash there. I just didn't want to be identified. Just today, we filled up a trailer for a shelter in Hendersonville, North Carolina that had no food for tons of moms and babies. All the stores around are empty or locked. In Chandler, North Carolina, 2,000 people haven't eaten anything or drank in 6 days. And I just got an SOS message out for help. I'm trying to tag the Cajun Navy and Operation Airdrop, but people are dying by the minute. Now, Biden just came out and said, we're taking decisive action today. 6 days late. What are you talking about? And I'm going to go in the federal government's non-response here shortly. But this needs to be wrapped around the neck of the Democrats. Once is highly suspect, and really we knew after Lahaina what was happening. But this is now no longer a coincidence. This is coordinated. This is planned. This is pure evil. And your Democratic family and friends, especially your infected areas, need to understand what's happening. Multiple truckers have reported having tires slashed. I've been hearing about this a ton. It's clearly true. So there's truckers trying to move in supplies, and they stop at a rest stop, and they go to sleep, and they wake up, and the tires have been slashed on their truck. Or they leave, go to the bathroom, the tires are slashed on their truck. There's not a chance on earth that that's random. Those are operatives doing that. Who, I ask you, what kind of totally screwed up person would do that? Why would they do it? Nobody would do that unless they were being directed to do that. Multiple truckers have reported having tires slashed. Our friends from Chimney Rock said they have heard multiple stories of people being robbed at gunpoint making supply runs. Now, that could be, just desperate people doing bad things. The tire slashing doesn't make sense. There's no upside to the person doing it. There's only downside to the victims of this disaster. Only people who wanted to exacerbate the circumstances there would do such a thing. 2 people that drove down to Charlotte yesterday, and today, one that we helped said bodies in trees all over ditches and major roads and back roads. Something weird is going on here in North Carolina. This person is clearly someone who is not as aware as most of the viewers of this channel, or they wouldn't be saying something weird. They would be saying this is an obvious Molochian plot. So he goes on to say, God bless me and let me know if I can help. And he said, someone with a large national megaphone needs to amplify how bad it is. People are now starting to die trapped. My town is Operation Airdrop, North Carolina Central Command. They need pilots with planes and now are asking just for trucks. People with big equipment are needed, but more than anything, the nation needs to put pressure on Washington to deploy the National Guard ASAP. If they're going to bring help, yes. My concern is that they would order the National Guard to just cordon off the area. I'm pretty sure that's what happened when the National Guard was finally put into place in Lahaina. That is not to besmirch any National Guard members. I have loved ones, family, friends who are in the National Guard. I'm saying the orders they are getting from further up the chain of command are pure evil. And I think that what needs to happen is that people need to take it upon themselves to help them and not expect the government to help, but instead expect the government to hinder it at every turn. One thing that might help is to have a large group of people do a caravan like the truckers caravan, but bringing supplies in a massive chain and then videotape and live stream trying to take aid into these people and show that it's the federal government and FEMA that's telling people not to help and assist others. He says the 82nd Airborne was begging to go since Saturday, but have been told to stand down. How many times have we heard that in the past 23 years? Stand down orders. Stand down orders. People in the military need to stop with this, and people need to start taking action, even if that means that they're disobeying orders, and start helping people. Something's got to give. So he goes, every effing Apache should have been flying rescue messages. Please amplify this message. So my friend Clint says that there is plans to build a smart city in Asheville, Carolina. Again, shades of Lahaina. There's also the world's most important mine, and some say, there in the Carolinas for the world's purest quartz crystal, which they make really high-level computing parts with. So there may be more similar deposits like that that are very valuable. The lithium, right now in Idaho, they are denying farmers water that they've had rights to for decades, if not a century or more. I don't remember how old Idaho is, but for the entirety, basically, of Idaho's existence, farmers have had rights to their own water. Suddenly, they're now taking away that water because lithium has been discovered in Idaho, and they need lots of water to process the lithium. So my friend said there was obvious signs, just like this upper left-hand corner, there were obvious signs of tons of gridding in the skies in the days before it happened, including you could see, I'm not certain he said this, I think he did, but often when you look at the seeding of clouds, you will then see a pulse wave go through the clouds and show a jaggedy edge, like you're looking at like you're looking at the amplitude of a wave. You know, those old school science fiction things where it'd show you the wiggly wave, or a stock market chart where it's kind of jagged like that, but it's all pushed as though a wave went through the clouds. And that's done by these weather weapons like HARP, SPX-1, NEXRAD. And there's all these geoengineering patents, and they're going to tell you climate change. Now, my read on this is that this event in Asheville and surrounding areas has been planned for a while in order to push the climate change agenda, in order to push forward with, you know, like, oh, we can't have Trump in there because climate change, see how bad it is, right? And they want to do the smart city and any kind of eminent domain for lithium mines, for any of these quartz crystal mines, for whatever it is they're up to in their WEF land grab bullshit. But this is not the distraction that the Molochians need. They need a big distraction. Now, the port thing looks like it's got resolved, and I'm going to talk about a deeper shadow war aspect of that port strike on my Patreon, and how that relates to the Corporation of the United States and all that stuff from the 1800s, right? From 1812 to, I forget what year it is, 1878 or something like that, when the Corporation of the United States is made, all that kind of stuff with your straw man, with your name all in capital letters, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to go into that deeper, but things are unraveling rapidly for the Molochians. The polls, even their polls, are showing them barely winning, which is to say losing badly, or even where they're losing, which means utter landslide, which is clearly the direction things are headed. They need something, or rather several somethings that are big, and they need them to go boom, 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 shock and awe. They have to have those kind of distractions. That's why I'm saying buy food and water and medicine and the means to defend yourself and your family. Do not hesitate. Do not wait any longer. If you haven't already done that, do it. If you can't afford to do that, everyone should be doing their inner work, and everyone can get involved in a volunteer capacity in their local disaster relief group. And then you can get a read on the people and find people who are most high aligned, or who are, at least aren't brainwashed Molochians. The vast majority of people involved will likely be people who are varying degrees of awake, because the very fact that they're interested in emergency preparedness means they're paying more attention than the average bear. Get involved in your local community. Do it right away. Meet and learn about your neighbors. I'm actually going to do that this weekend. My ex-wife and her husband, they live up in the area that is my bug out direction. And by the way, having a bug out bag is not a bad idea. Having a bag with like your passport, your vital documents, some gold in it, some cash in it, right? A point and click means to defend yourself, a bit of any critical medication you might have, so you can just grab it and go if you need to, right? That's an important thing to do. That's something that I'm getting together. I'm well prepped, but most of my preparations involve me kind of staying here or moving quickly into the nearby mountains where my ex-wife and her husband live. They're very plugged into that community, and that community is very close-knit. That's where my son's friend that I talked about a couple weeks ago, who died shockingly, lives. It's a little small town up in the mountains. Having a plan like that is very, very wise. So in addition to all the other nonsense that's going on, in North Carolina, the FCC illegally revoked Musk's Starlink. And he probably could have saved lives with that Starlink, right? But that would have also helped communications get out. It makes me wonder if, if this one that got revoked here, where he had won way back in 2020, he had won in North Carolina $17 billion contract over 10 years. They revoked that. I'd be curious to see where else they have revoked similar things. Elon Musk has now made Starlink available, and I've long said the Molochians are going to get rid of the legacy systems to create a fog of war and darkness and lack of information exchange, and eventually everything will be moved over to the Starlink and other various satellite systems, to the Luciferian internet, the Luciferian communications grid. So Elon Musk has already offered for free for anyone in North Carolina to have access. The problem with that is you need certain equipment, is my understanding, in order to patch in. So it's a little unfortunate, but at least it's a good gesture. It's a cynical Luciferian gambit, but they do also they do care about us in the sense of that we're their base and they need us for narrative and all this other stuff. They stand in stark contrast to the Molochians. There's a lot of regular people who might be family members, like my family, who have honest feelings of care and empathy and like for the Democratic leadership. That is not returned. Trump and the Republicans may not like us. They may not love us and be wonderful humans who just are most high and they love thy neighbor as thyself. No, I don't think that's what's happening, but they need us. They see value in humanity. Value they can extract, but value nonetheless. The Molochians hate us. The Democratic leadership hates the Democrat rank and file. They will liquidate them if they were to ever to win. They will not win, but they would liquidate their Democratic followers. They have declared war at this point on the American population. It's absolutely insane what's happening. And I have a montage I'm going to have here at the end to show just how unhinged, dangerous, and psychopathic and treasonous the Democrats have become as they carry water, tainted poison water, for the WEF crowd of Molochians. FEMA, why is FEMA not doing a good job? Well, it's because FEMA over the last 4 years has been transformed. It was responsible for standing natural disasters, although back in the 80s, look up Rex 84 and the FEMA concentration camps. They moved away from that particular way of doing things, although they may still have those plans mothballed and likely do. They moved away from that to mostly refocus FEMA as an illegal alien resettlement agency that emphasizes diversity, equity, inclusion over public safety. So it talks in here about the program. The Emergency Food and Shelter Program is a FEMA-funded program authorized by the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act of 1987. Once again, them hollowing out and using as a Trojan horse something that was probably a good thing when it was passed, using this to reroute disaster funds towards something that was never intended when that bill was written. The program may also receive funding toward the National Board for Distribution to local social service organizations that provide humanitarian relief to families and individuals encountered by the Department of Homeland Security. Right here in my home state of Oregon, they're offering massive, something like $20,000 or $30,000 to first-time homeowners, as long as they're not U.S. citizens. And I was like, where are they getting the money from that? Where's the money coming from to put all these illegal immigrants up in New York hotels? Where the hell is it coming from? FEMA and Mayorkas. Mayorkas, maybe the worst person in the Biden administration, and let that sink in. Mayorkas runs the Department of Homeland Security, which has FEMA wrapped into it. So the Shelter and Services Program is designed to exclusively provide shelter and services to illegal aliens, not American citizens. Over $1 billion in taxpayer dollars have been allocated between fiscal year 2023 and fiscal year 2024. Here's all the data for it. Go ahead and pause it to take a look-see. SSP provides financial support to non-federal entities to provide humanitarian services to non-citizen migrants following their release from the Department of Homeland Security. So they do that catch and release thing, and then they give them money, and then they go, here, go to the city, and here, let's mass transport you there. For example, that $1 billion, FEMA gave over $38 million to New York City, a sanctuary city overrun by illegal aliens. New York City, in turn, is handing out gift cards and hotels to those illegal aliens. Again, we can't blame these people who have come here. Some of them are dangerous and violent, like those Venezuelan prison gangs. I have no doubt in my mind that there will be conflict in this country. There will be difficulty, and there'll also be sadness. More than likely, when the mass deportations begin, there'll be some good people who get wrapped up in that and deported out, and that's sad. But maybe they will then be able to come into the country legally. Regardless, what we can't do is we can't let them pit us against these migrants. That doesn't mean don't defend themselves. It doesn't mean don't get organized. That doesn't mean don't game plan for this. But what we can't do is start demonizing people or start thinking that everyone that has an accent is an illegal immigrant. That's what the Molochians want us to do. It's the divide and conquer tactic, and we mustn't do it. That said, the people who are doing this, like George Soros and Mayorkas, and go ahead and take a look at what they have in common, right? Oh, surprise, surprise. It's the same group of people that are always used by the Venetian black nobility as frontmen, right? Those people, including Biden and Harris, who have nothing to do with that group, that ethnic group, right? The people who are doing this must be held accountable for treason, for crimes against humanity, for human trafficking, for all the crimes they've done. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is we cannot afford to let our humanity be stolen by these unfolding events. That's what the Molochians want. And that's what we must refuse to do. We can have compassion for these people. Some of these people, the angels have told me, will end up becoming allies, will end up becoming true Americans in this process. They'll realize how good it is here, and they'll want to help their fellow Americans. And then I think we need to, in turn, help protect them when the deportation comes and say, hey, do a thorough interview of this person, do a thorough interview of all the people that this person has interacted with, and let's figure out a way that this person who clearly wants to be a loyal American can stay. We need to be compassionate on the back end. But this has to be called out, what's happening with FEMA. This is absolutely unacceptable. And this is something that needs to be shown to all those people who are not listening. They need to see it. They need to be given this information. Their soul still has a choice to make. The hour is late. Not many people are going to switch sides unless they have terrible tragedy hit them. I saw a guy from Asheville, Carolina, a gay man, at least I'm assuming based on the way his voice was. He was a hardcore Harris booster, and he was absolutely devastated. And that's what it's going to take for a lot of people. Personal tragedy to wake them out of the extreme, next level, giga, ultra brainwashing of fifth generational warfare and decades of it. Decades of conditioning and programming. It takes a lot to break out of that. But we should try. We got to do it with compassion, though. So now I just want to have a little montage of the utter madness of what the Democrats are saying. I mean, it is absolutely astonishing what they're saying. I'm just going to let it speak for itself, and then I'm going to comment on the back end.
And I think the dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact are kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people go, and that people self-select. where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. And you know, there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, you know, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, you know, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, you know, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, you know, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change. Now, obviously, there are some people in our country who are prepared to implement change in other ways, and
so
that's
you're
really
questioning
dangerous.
really if democracy can survive unregulated social media.
I think democracies are very challenged right now, and have not proven they can move fast enough or big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing. And to me, that is part of what this race, this election is all about. Will we break the fever in the United States?
So what Biden should do, not that you asked, but when they passed that law, the Supreme Court passed that ruling, you know, where they said, you're not the president, you're the king, which is what that ruling is. You can do whatever you want. You can never be, you know, held responsible. I thought, you know, Biden's still the president. No one seems to notice, but Biden should dissolve the Supreme Court.
Dissolve the Supreme Court?
I'm the president. I'm the king now, like you said, and go home.
Okay. Good to see you're centrist.
What can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, you know, they want to kick it to Congress. So it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job and interpret what the great 14th Amendment means.
Yeah, calling for the president to dissolve the Supreme Court. And listen to the roar of approval from the Democratic crowd. Now, that could be canned laughter. I'm not sure whether he actually has a live audience. Bill Maher is horrified by what she says, but also kind of like, well, whatever. I'm in the protected group. It won't matter. But they're openly calling for the executive branch to dissolve the judicial branch. That's treasonous to call for the destruction of one of the 3 co-equal branches of government. It's truly mind-boggling. Then you have John Kerry calling for the removal of the First Amendment, basically threatening, saying we're going to remove the First Amendment once we get that second Harris-Biden term. And by the way, among the many, many people I look forward to getting arrested and seeing on trial, John Horseface Kerry is way up on my list. Then you have Jamie Raskin, and 2 of the 3 of these people have something in common with Mayorkas and Soros, the favorite little frontmen and eventual sacrificial lambs, scapegoats of the nation black nobility, right? You just keep seeing it. And again, if you wanted to have an Irish worldwide conspiracy, would you really have all the heads of media and banks named O'Shaughnessy and O'Malley and Fitzpatrick and O'Brien? No. No, you would want to have people with different last names in there. That's how you can know it's not that group. But that doesn't mean you don't hold them accountable. I'm just saying, go ahead and see that. Go ahead and pay attention to that. And if you watch this channel, you know that that's just an administrative layer of the Venetian black nobility, the Babylonian dark sorcerers who really run things, and Molochians. So I am now going to share this once again, and I want to talk now about, actually, I'm going to stop the share. We'll get to that in a second. What I want to say to you is that if you're listening to this, and if you're most high aspirational, you're moving in that direction vibrationally, right? Because it can be a bit daunting to think that, wow, I get angry in traffic. My wife yelled at me and I yelled back. I yelled at my wife preemptively and she yelled back at me. I yelled at my kids, right? Whatever kind of situation. I yelled at my husband yelled at me. I got stressed out at work. It's easy then to conclude, wow, you know what? I'm not making it. I'm not doing so good. No, you are. You just have to keep working. In these past several weeks, the big theme has been about purging, about deep, dark patterns coming up to the surface for healing. And if you took advantage of the relative calm of the last several weeks to do that inner work, which is what I was in the thick of doing, fantastic and good job. And by the way, probably you're not done. I'm not done. And I've been told whenever there's a lull, try and take time to focus on your healing. Also, getting the vessel in shape. I hurt my ankle very badly at the beginning of this purging process and had something fall through for me that would have been a game changer and solve the biggest, most painful thing in my life right now. And so I fell off the wagon when I hurt myself from exercise. I also will just be honest, I was smoking weed to deal with the pain to a degree that was no longer a reasonable amount, and that I had to just recently get control of that again for my health, right? And to have clear-headed to operate. I didn't want to go to the doctor and get opiates or get worthless, non-helpful pain pills. And so I made that decision, and it was good in a sense because it can help sometimes with healing around PTSD. And so I've been told that when there's a lull, when there's a moment, be sure that you take that time to be introspective and work on healing, to see how you're triggered and how shadows coming up and old patterns are coming up for healing and purging and transmutation. But the call is now for leadership in your community. But first, you have to take care of this, take care of yourself, take care of the vessel, do that inner work, do the external preparation at the same time, because the time is now. The time to be like, oh, I'll do that in a few weeks. Oh, I'll do that in a few months. Oh, once I just close this deal, once I just, get this new job, once I get a girlfriend, once I do whatever, I'm going to do this when I get that next bit of money. No. Hear me. With what money you have right now, get food and water. Once you have food, water, medicine, then you can relax a bit. You need 3 months minimum, right? And you can always eat it. You can always just eat it here and there, crack open a bag of rice every now and then and just eat off that rice, right? If you do it the proper way, that stuff's good for 20 years. So you have plenty of time to eat it, and guaranteed, because of inflation, it's just cheaper, high quality food that you'll eat in the future. Do it. Okay, with that aside, the other very urgent task is to do this inner work and to also connect with our communities. And now is the time. If you're hearing this, you're of a vibration, which means you're extremely likely bordering on certain to survive these events that are coming. So you might say, oh, good, well, I can relax. Yes, I said survive, not have a good time. The more prepared you are, especially internally, but also externally, the more prepared you are, the better you'll be able to navigate these circumstances. Look at my friend Clint. Clint very fortunately listened to me, and he took action, and he took control of his life and his family's destiny, and they stockpiled food, water, and medicine. And he partially at least credits me. It's Clint's incredible initiative. It's him working it out in his budget. It's him taking direct, decisive action and embodying that divine masculine archetype of provider and protector. He took action. And he did it in collaboration with his wife. He sat down with her and talked to her after a session with me, and he took action. He is doing well now. It's not a great situation because it's basically, his description was, Asheville is gone. It's gone. It'll take a long time to recover. That entire area is just never going to be the same. So he's experiencing the challenge, but he took the action and he got prepared. And so while it's still challenging, he feels incredibly blessed. He knows they have plenty of food, they have plenty of water, and his wife and his infant child are safe. And they have so much abundance because they took action that they're able to share it with their elderly neighbors and probably help save their lives because they didn't have food. They didn't have water. They didn't have what they needed. And that's just more positive karma for my friend Clint, who's already a great and wonderful man, but he's going to reap the rewards of his, loving thy neighbor as thyself, right? He shared, he could have kept it. He could have been fearful and responded with fear. And no, I got to make sure I have enough for me and my family. He didn't. He was generous. He was generous and he helped his neighbors. And fortunately, because of that cushion they have, they'll be able to quickly move from where they are now and get to a much safer location where there isn't the ongoing logistics and infrastructure problems that will be in Asheville for probably a long, long time. So I really want you to listen, and please hear me when I say this is just the beginning. This is the opening salvos. This is Lexington and Concord in the Revolutionary War. Little tiny skirmishes that presage much bigger events. We're out of the eye of the storm now. Events are going to go pop, 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 pop. Now, if you're interested in supporting this channel, you can become a member of our Patreon. Link in the description below. And so some things we're going to talk about in this week's Patreon. We're going to talk about how Trump and HRC were at the Al Smith dinner back in 2016. And there was a picture of their Venetian Black nobility Vatican handler. And it has been a mainstay. And basically every presidential candidate, except for Walter Mondale, very interesting, in 1984, who lost the biggest landslide election in modern American history. Always presidential candidates have gone to the Al Smith dinner, which is a giant Catholic fundraiser dinner where huge Catholic luminaries are there. And yeah, so I'm going to be talking about that. This proposed 28th Amendment, which is the single most shocking thing I've read in a while. No, it is not Gavin Newsom's 28th Amendment proposal. It's a far more disturbing one that seems part revelation of the method, part like warning, right? We'll be talking about that. That is absolutely shocking. Has to do with the mass casualty event in Congress and how they deal with that. We'll be talking about the cell phone and pager explosions in Lebanon. We'll be talking about the potential of another plot against Trump's life involving surface-to-air missiles. And the intelligence is Iran. I don't think it is Iran. I think it's a different state actor, which may or may not be brought into the discussion. We're going to talk about what's happening in the Sinaloa cartel and how there's a Molochian versus Luciferian power struggle. You're seeing this everywhere on Earth now. The shadow war is breaking out between the old guard, lower consciousness forces, and the new guard, so the Molochian forces and the new guard Luciferian forces. We're going to talk about the port strikes, which I guess is just now resolved. It literally was just getting resolved as I started recording this, and how that relates to the U.S. corporation. I saw a very interesting video on that, and it had the Ring of Truth. Going to be talking about that. We're going to talk about how police handbooks are being issued around UFOs and UAPs, and they're now directing police in local municipalities to track UFO sightings and how to do it and to take it serious and that it's a real thing. And then we're going to be talking a bit about Vedic astrology updates that are impacting global tensions. And then there will be Some amount of angelic prophecy from the virtues, both one for initial tears and then a seraphim and virtues. At least I believe the seraphim will be involved again, channeling for the higher tiers as well. That those are for people who are really wanting to be leaders in their community and are asking for that kind of guidance. So it's going to be a really powerful, jam-packed, and probably quite long Patreon. And so if you're interested, you can find links in the description below. So thank you so much. And please, please, please hear me. This is a time to take action. And if you are in the Southeast or you know people in the Southeast who need help, please help them. If you're able to help in the Southeast, please get organized with other people on how to help it. If you're going to help, you might want to try and get a group of volunteers that's quite large and then live stream it if at all possible. Internet connections are spotty, although I was able to talk to my friend Clint. If you're able to live stream it, do, because almost certainly when you try and take a convoy of goods to help these people, you will be stopped by federal agents who will try and prevent you, and people need to know that's happening. So it's time now. It's time to take decisive, definitive action. It's time to step into your power. You might be feeling shame or hesitancy or fear. You can dig deeper than that, and you can discover how you have within you the spark of divinity. You have what's called the Atma, or the Godhead. You have that aspect of yourself that's directly connected to the Most High, the creator God of this realm, right? It's just the creator God of this realm. There's a much bigger ultimate God that's beyond good and evil, beyond form. It's both formless and all forms are it. But here on earth, the creator God of this realm, the Most High, who Jesus Yeshua talked about, who said the most important commandment is to love thy neighbor as thyself, that spark lies within you. You are meant to do good things in the world. You are meant to overcome these self-limiting beliefs and to step into your power. And you're about to be put into a pressure cooker that's going to thrust you into this position. Ready or not, here reality comes. It's time. Take control of your life. When you take radical responsibility for every aspect of your life and you shed that victimhood mentality, incredible, miraculous things can happen. The angels are there with you. The angels will help bring you miracles and synchronicities, like my friend Clint, who is safe and sound and warm and even has running water where he is. That's an example of the angels doing a little bit extra to help him because of the vibration he holds. But he also took wise physical action. He also is friends with neighbors and community, and he also has done his part. This is a call to action for everyone who listens to this channel. The time is now. Much love to you all, and may God bless you all. And remember, in order to love thy neighbor as thyself, you have to begin by loving yourself. You can only love your neighbor to the degree to which you love yourself. And Jesus Yeshua said that his final, most essential command was to love thy neighbor as thyself. It's a perfect circle. You love yourself. You see the divine spark in your neighbor. You love them. They love you. It's a harmonious circle. It's oneness. And that is the direction we're moving into as a species. Thank you for everything. Much love and be well.